Hello, this is Ali Mohammed with the Community for Justice and Equality Advocates. Welcome. I have Nadiah Mshasha with us here today. Nadiah is the chapter president of the Bay Area Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. Nadiah, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad. Thank you for having me tonight.
I appreciate you being here. I wanted to just kind of get started with a little bit of background as to what the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund does, what the primary mission and objectives are, the core principles, how you got started, a little bit about your story with this organization, and how long you've been working with them.
Okay, so basically, the Palestine Children Relief Fund was started by Steve Sossaby and Dr. Nasser back in the early 90s, based on the need, basically on a couple of children that were identified in Jerusalem, in Palestine, that had injuries that needed treatment. So it was basically these particular children that were identified. The information got back to the States because at that time Steve Sossaby was a journalist, and it spread like wildfire, the fact that these children that were injured in Palestine needed medical treatment, and hence the birth of the medical treatment abroad program. So since then, of course, the Palestine Children Relief Fund has developed, rapidly into a wonderful nonprofit organization that does not only treatment abroad, but also has other humanitarian aspects of the organization, including medical missions. So basically, there's different facets of the PCRF that has developed over the years, over the past 30 years, actually. And so there are different chapters throughout the world, actually, and we are one of these chapters. There's over 20 chapters across the world and within the United States. That work on different aspects of how to help the larger organization of the PCRF.
Thank you. How does the organization measure its impact in terms of the work that it does? I mean, you guys are rated 4 stars on Charity Navigator, a very reputable organization. What are the main ways that you guys measure your impact and your outcomes?
So basically we have, like I said, it started out as a grassroots nonprofit humanitarian organization, and it is still that type of an organization where it's grassroots, where, like I said, the different chapters throughout the world, provide fundraising and different ways of facilitating for children to be treated abroad. But then there is the larger aspect of the administrative aspect of the PCRF, which involves a medical board that has a myriad of different types of professionals from around the world that are part of this medical board that have different ways of assessing the programs of the PCRF, how it's delivered, how it's assessed, the evaluations, and so on and so forth. And of course, your typical nonprofit organization that has the medical board and that also has a regular steering committee board of directors. So these are the different, generalization or overview of the people that are responsible for doing these specific assessments. And the beautiful thing about it is, like I said, you have the different chapters that consists of volunteers like myself, who have different types of backgrounds, different interests. I happen to have a background in public health. There's people who have finance backgrounds, or just the simple interest of wanting to help Palestine. And then you have employees of the Palestine Children Relief Fund that are on the ground in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza, for example, who are out there helping and providing services to individuals on the ground in Palestine.
So you guys are basically providing relief in multiple countries, not just in Palestine proper.
Yeah, mostly in Palestine, but there's different, like, for example, medical missions that have gone out to other, refugee camps and other in Syria and Lebanon, for example. But currently our focus, as you can imagine, is in Palestine proper and including Gaza.
And so what I'm understanding is that there are two main components. One is that you take children from Palestine and give them medical attention abroad. And
Mhm.
the other component is that you have medical missions to Palestine. Are those the two main kind of components of the organization?
So I'd say there's a lot more, and again, a lot has happened. I remember, I know one of the a lot of times one of the questions are with any kind of a nonprofit organization, especially dealing with in the Middle East, is, and specifically in Palestine, is the challenges. And as we all know, one of the most recent challenges was COVID. Another challenge for us is occupation. So there are so many other aspects of the Palestine Children Relief Fund. One of them, a major one, is the medical missions, which covers, over the past, since in the past 6 years, about 500 medical teams that are comprised of physicians from different countries that have different types of specialties that they bring into Palestine and or Gaza for treatment. So there's that aspect, the medical missions. There's a treatment abroad program where, like I mentioned, we bring children since 1992. We've had about 2,000 children that we've brought from different parts to the U.S. and other parts of the world for treatment. There's also training of medical professionals in Palestine. And recently, right before the conflict, the attack on Gaza, there were physicians there that were training healthcare professionals on the ground in pediatric cardiac care. So another aspect of, aside from that medical aspect, is distribution of supplies. So so what I just described was more of the medical aspect. Then there's more of the humanitarian aspect, which encompasses distribution of supplies, which includes hygiene kits and food and clothing, and summer camps, child sponsorship of children that are disabled, and then orphan sponsorship. So these are some other things that the PCRF works on the ground.
Got it. And so the whole organization is focused really on children. There's no real focus on adult care. It's just primarily children focused. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. It's primarily children focused, correct.
Got it. You know, there are always challenges when you're doing this kind of work in any part of the world. But I think specifically in the context of occupation and the Palestinian movement, there have to be unique challenges and challenges that kind of surface all of the time. How do you adapt? How do you adapt to those challenges as an organization? For example, obviously what's going on in Gaza right now brings up enormous challenges, I'd imagine, for the organization. How do you guys address those and adapt to those challenges?
So just to clarify, I mean, from my perspective, I'm here, in a comfortable environment in the United States, volunteering with the local chapter of the Palestine Children Relief Fund. So our focus here is to raise awareness through humanitarian work, raise awareness about the needs on the ground in Palestine and Gaza for humanitarian and medical needs. So that's what our role here as a chapter is. But to answer your question to the best of my ability, for with the challenges that the PCRF has within Palestine and Gaza, is, as I mentioned earlier, it's challenging in the sense that, of course, you have the healthcare sector in Palestine. Well, in Palestine is one thing and in Gaza is another thing. So first of all, in Palestine, you have, the occupation that makes it very difficult for, as you know, for permits and for things to be developed. And then, for the people that are building the medical facilities and so on and so
You're
forth.
talking about the West Bank right now.
The West Bank, yeah. So there's that whole aspect of the obvious challenges, and that those challenges can apply also to the operation of those facilities, right? And then now currently with the situation in Gaza, it's very, very important to identify the fact that, the Palestine Children Relief Fund is an organization that provides services not during a wartime. And I don't want to use the word war. It's not an equal war, but during the conflict that's happening in Gaza. So, and that's actually the challenge that we've been having recently, is explaining that to people, for us ourselves as volunteers, to understand that and convey that message to the people who just want to help and come to the PCRF, because we are recognized by Charity Navigator and we have such a great name and have been very, very effective in our work. So to explain that to people, that because it's a abnormal situation, that we're not a disaster relief organization. So we do our best, but hence yet still we have been able to get, putting on the humanitarian hat of our organization, have been able to get in food and supplies as much as possible, as considering the circumstances.
I see. In terms of your collaborations, you guys, I imagine, collaborate with other organizations. Um, can you name some of those, and perhaps also let us know, do you collaborate? Are there any governmental collaborations that you guys are involved in?
Recently, like I just mentioned, because of the challenges that are presenting themselves in Gaza, that we have worked with, for example, the Red Crescent Society, with Anira, and with World Kitchen. We've worked with them as much as possible to get in food and supplies. So whenever we're hoping to also work with an organization called Give Light in terms of orphans and addressing, because now, as you can imagine, things change by the minute. And for example, we already have an orphan sponsorship program, but we're hoping to expand that, as unfortunately, like it breaks your heart to even think about it, that there are existing orphans, and there are more orphans being made, and that whole concept of addressing that situation in the context of our culture, and other aspects of that. So that's currently some specific live examples of some partnerships and collaborations that we and then in terms of governments, specifically the Jordanian government has been very, very helpful in working with us in getting different supplies into Gaza as well currently.
I see. Is there any interface with the United States government?
I can't really answer that in terms, I mean, basically, not that I know of. Just the usual, that basically, trying to get visas for children to get, treatment right now. That treatment, by the way, it's important to mention, because of the situation, when it comes to Gaza, at least, that treatment abroad program, and we wish we can bring children like right now, but it's easier said than done. So that's something that, that's the only thing that I can think about in terms of how the government will get involved, but nothing that I know of, to my knowledge, at least.
With regards to how you guys structure your medical missions, you obviously have these medical missions working out of hospitals in Palestine, in Gaza. I guess a few questions. Number one, how do you recruit physicians, I assume coming from the United States? What are the main types of, or the most helpful types of physicians for service in Palestine and Gaza? And then I think lastly, how do these physicians and healthcare providers interface and coordinate with the healthcare system over there?
That's a really good question. So I'm going to answer to the best of my ability. So basically, the main idea behind the medical missions is that getting together and recruiting physicians in different parts of the world that are able to provide treatments and surgeries that are far and few in between in Gaza and in Palestine in general. So for example, a wonderful physician by the name of Dr. Ahmed Sheikh is a cardiac surgeon from the Bay Area, and he went to a medical mission, I think in 2018 or 2019, and it was specifically for a cardiac care, for cardiac surgery. So as far as who puts these medical teams together, who sets up like the structure and the the very, very many important details of these different missions is through the medical board, the medical advisory board. And then also sometimes what happens is, not sometimes, but like, for example, well, when it comes to the medical treatment abroad program, that is something that's more internal, where a patient is presented to the PCRF, and then we refer that patient to a facility, like for example, in the Bay Area where they can be treated. But when it comes to these medical missions, that's more of a top-down setup where it's recommended by the medical advisory board and maybe some other medical teams that present themselves and reach out to the PCRF and want to go and provide a medical mission, and it goes that direction.
Let's see. Um, can you speak to a little bit about your advocacy here in the Bay Area? What you guys do in the Bay Area, and if people are interested, how they can get involved in the work that you're doing and in the organization.
That's a really, really great question. And as you can imagine, I mean, we have gotten so many emails and so many people reaching out because, it's a very devastating situation that we're in right now, and everyone wants to help as much as they can help, whether it's donating, how to donate, or how to physically help. The good news is that there's many ways that individuals can help. And like I said earlier, in the past, one of the main focuses of the chapters, like for example, our chapter, is fundraising. So fundraising, we recently had a gala where we were able to fundraise a good amount of money to help specifically in Gaza, and also like the different kind. In the past, we've had fundraisers that have focused on opening certain facilities, like for example, opening a pediatric care, one of the first and only pediatric care units in Gaza, for example. So fundraising is one aspect of it, but it's not the only aspect. You use the word advocacy, in my opinion, and that's one of my goals. We're volunteering currently with the PCRF here in the Bay Area, is to use this as a community building organization, because whenever we have events, it's helping to increase awareness of who we are, that here we exist as Palestinians here in the Bay Area, wanting to help our people back home. So we advocate for those back home, and we advocate for ourselves. Like, for example, anyone that wants to help, even teenagers, they can use, volunteering with us as an opportunity for their volunteer hours for high school, for college applications, and so on and so forth. We also advocate a new and developing aspect of this is the fact that, yes, fortunately, there are people that are able to get out of Gaza, and some of them are starting to settle here in the Bay Area. So what's been happening is, because we are a known name, we're a known organization, trusted organization, and we have volunteers that have been with us for years and years. The founder of this chapter, her name is Rima Al-Ara, and for example, Noha Shoman has been with this local chapter for over 15 years, and they have established connections with people in the Bay Area when it comes to housing, education, you name it. So not only medical connections, but just other connections. So we are primarily here, like I said, to fundraise for the PCRF, to have events, to advocate, but also to help people that reach out to us, like for example, most recently a family from Gaza who needed assistance for getting connected with housing and so on and so forth. So those are the main things that we're historically known for doing in the Bay Area. But with this current situation, as you can imagine, other things have arisen, such as helping refugees to resettle in the Bay Area.
I see.
Yep.
Do you guys work with hospitals at all to secure donations from them? I mean, a lot of the time you see medical facilities donating to different causes like Ukraine and the like. Is that a part of your work at all?
I'm sorry, working with who?
Like medical facilities, to donations from hospitals, medical supplies. Is it just money that is being sent over there, or is it also medical supplies that are being sent?
That's a great question. And actually, a couple of our board members actually suggested that, because of the fact that, as we all know, that it's very, very difficult to get things into Gaza. And I was listening to your interview with Dr. Just Ghanem, and this was an issue before this current conflict, obviously, but it's even worse now, of course. So there's always a challenge getting things into Gaza. So with the current situation, there has been an effort to get supplies in. And yes, answering your question, we have had people reach out to us and say, hey, I have connections in medical supply companies, and can we send that in? And, with the current situation, we've tried to do that as much as possible. And the other aspect of getting assistance into Gaza is using medical supplies and so on, and food supplies within Gaza to distribute that inside of Gaza. So yes, we've had all kinds of creative ways of people before the current crisis and during this existing crisis to get supplies in. So it's not only just funding, it can be supplies, definitely, is the answer.
I wanted to follow up on the previous question. What is the best way for people to get in touch with your chapter if they want to participate? Is it through online coordination, or the website? Is that the best way, or?
Yeah, and it's great that you asked that question, because actually today I was speaking with Firas Khatib, who is a longtime chapter member as well, and we're working on improving. Again, just a note that all the people that work within each chapter are all volunteers. So we do the best to keep our, like, for example, our local website we're working on updating that. And as you can imagine, with the situation in Gaza, we've all been, whether we're volunteers or the employees of the PCRF that are based out of Chicago, and actually there are some, in Amman and in different parts of Palestine and Ramallah, have been inundated with, and overwhelmed. So currently what we're trying to do now is update our website, but I guess the long-winded answer to that is the best way would be via email. And we're working on, if you were to send us an email, we're working on creating a database of volunteers. Two of the main requests that people reach out to us about are how to donate, which is easy. If you just type in PCRF, you'll go to our main website page. And as far as finding out to help, sending us an email, we can work out if people want to be involved with regular meetings that we have about working on regular events, or certain aspects of strengthening our local chapter. Best ways via email. And right now what we're trying to do is, anticipating, and given the fact that we all hope and pray that, of course, soon the ceasefire is going to be happening. And once that happens, we are trying to get our chapter ready for absorbing, hopefully, as many kids as we can to come and to the States and come to the Bay Area and help them get the treatment that they need. And that takes a lot of organization and coordination, as you can imagine, because basically there's the whole aspect of getting them here, the travel arrangements, where they are going to be staying, who's going to be hosting them, in other words, how they're going to be getting transportation, where they're going to be getting their treatment. So right now, if we can definitely use help and strengthening our organization to start working, hopefully soon, inshallah, the ceasefire will be happening and we'll be ready to help as much as possible.
It sounds like you guys need social workers as much as you need doctors.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't never say no to anyone that wants to help. And, again, what happens is a lot of people are very just like, passionately wanting to help. And it's, the first step is to send us an email and we can take it from there. We're hoping to have also like in the beginning of the year, in January, February, an opportunity for people to get together and talk about, talk to us about how they'd like to help, and talk more about developing different ways that volunteers can help.
Does the
So
chapter
short-term and long-term
go ahead?
volunteers. Sorry, short-term and long-term volunteering.
I see. Does the chapter hold meetings at all?
We do. We do have regular meetings around our events. We tend to have more meetings, of course, more frequently. But usually we do, when we're not having major events, we tend to have meetings at least a couple times a month.
As the chapter president for the Bay Area chapter of PCRF, what's your outlook on the long-term vision and the strategic goals? Where do you see the organization, in the next 5-10 years? What would you guys, what milestones would you really like to accomplish?
Okay, that's a loaded question, but that's a great question. And again, I mean, I have my personal opinion. Again, I'm a volunteer of this local chapter, and I know this is a cliched term, but it takes a village. I mean, we have, like I said, members of this chapter, the original founder, Rima, who has put her and her family have put her heart and soul into developing this chapter and nurturing it like a child. And like I said, Noha Shuman has, has a lot of community contacts. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that, we're hoping to continue this organization as a grassroots organization. And what's been happening is that over the past 30 years, as you can imagine, because there's such a need for this organization and the services that it provides. And again, this is just my opinion. The original founder of the organization, Steve Sosebee, when he started this organization along with Dr. Nasser, basically it was a very small nonprofit organization. Now it's developed into a larger organization, and there's pros and cons to that. So the beauty of this organization and what draws me to wanting to be involved with it is that it's based on grassroots. It's based on, housewives, doctors, lawyers, individuals, students who basically want to help Palestine through this humanitarian organization. So I don't think that, unfortunately, with the situation, what's happening in Gaza and with, the occupation in Palestine, there's going to be a need for such an organization like the PCRF for a while. We're all, here willing to work and work towards helping as much as we can. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I just last question. I wanted to kind of open things up for you as a Palestinian yourself. It's a very difficult situation right now, and I just kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to give us any remarks on anything that you'd like to say, anything that's important to you to speak on at this moment in terms of your outlook or your perspective, because you do have a unique perspective and a unique voice as a Palestinian.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's before, just like, how, as we all see in the news that, starting on October 7th. So it's not all about starting on October 7th. It's about, being a Palestinian in existence prior to that, right? And I was born and raised in the Bay Area. My father is Palestinian, my husband is Palestinian, my mother is actually Indian. I'm also a Muslim. So being born and raised in the Bay Area, I was raised to, be proud of who I am. And it's great to have an organization like the Palestine Children Relief Fund to exist so that the next generation of individuals of Palestinian Americans or supporters of Palestine can have an organization to help, because we all have this desire to help distribute their energy towards Palestine. So
Absolutely. It's wonderful that we have PCRF and so much activity and advocacy in the Bay Area. It's a special place to be. We appreciate all of your work and hope to see you as the president of the Bay Area chapter for many years to come.
my goodness, okay.
Nadiah Mshasha, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you and your time and hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad.
All right. Have a great night.
Thank you.